This is Rob Garris of the Rockefeller Foundation, and I'm here with David Kertzer of Brown University, who's at the Foundation's Bellagio Center working on a project on Mussolini and Pope Pius XI. David, it's a pleasure to have you at the center.
It's great to be here.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit more about your work?
I've been working for quite a while on the relationship between the state and the church in Italy, and done both historical projects and projects having to do with more recent times. But just a few years ago, in 2006, the Pope announced the opening of the archives for the papacy of Pius XI. And he was Pope from 1922 to 1939, very dramatic times in Europe in general and Italy in particular. In fact, he came to power the same year as Mussolini did. So now with the new opening of those archives, for the first time, we really can answer some of the old debates about what the relationship in fact was between the Pope and the Duce and Mussolini. So it's really a very exciting time to be working in this area.
I imagine if you have access to a lot of new material, that's going to make this work very different from other things that have been written about Mussolini in the past. What have you found already, and what do you expect your book will introduce to the public that hasn't been discussed in the past?
One of the things I found is that we tend to think about Mussolini as the great dictator who's, of course, therefore dictating what needs to be done, and the church having to deal with whatever he decided. In fact, the newly available archives show that in many, many cases, in fact, practically every week, the Pope was making demands of Mussolini to do things that Mussolini didn't necessarily want to do. The Pope was hoping to turn Italy into a Catholic state, which it hadn't been since unification in 1861, and kept demanding various things of Mussolini to enforce morality, for example, according to the Pope's ideas of morality. So often, for example, public dancing was something that local fascist groups sponsored, but the Pope was against. He thought it was immoral to have men and women dancing together, so just to take a banal example. But there are many more significant ones, not least having to do ultimately with the racial laws and the anti-Semitic campaign, which is probably the most controversial part of this book.
What does the new material tell us about the Pope's relationship to anti-Semitic laws in the era?
There's been a huge controversy over the relationship of the Pope and his Secretary of State, who is Eugenio Pacelli, who succeeds him on his death in February 1939 and becomes Pius XII, about whom there's been quite a bit of controversy. The controversy having to do with the racial laws is what attitude did the Church and the Vatican and the Pope in particular and the Secretary of State have toward the introduction of laws persecuting the Jews in Italy. The defenders of the Church, or apologists one might say, have long argued that the Pope and his Secretary of State vociferously opposed them. What I've found is a very different story. They oppose one aspect of the racial laws, but only one aspect, and that is that converted Jews, that is Catholics who had been Jewish, should be treated as Jews. And that he very much opposed, and in fact wrote even to the king, which he had never protested anything Mussolini had done to the Italian king before, but did in this particular case. But I've actually discovered that even before the racial laws were promulgated, a private emissary, a secret emissary of the Pope, met with Mussolini and agreed to what the anti-Semitic laws would be, and that they would be in accord with church traditional teachings about the Jews. So I think when the book comes out, this aspect is likely to attract a great deal of attention, and I'm sure generate a certain amount of debate and denunciation, probably.
That does sound really interesting. I'm sure it will get a lot of attention. And I know that you've only been here at the center for a week, but I wonder if you have a sense yet of how the residency program might influence or shape your work.
Well, I think there are two kinds of ways. One, of course, this is such a spectacular setting, and we have a kind of perfect opportunity to do our own work without any interruption in wonderful circumstances. So that even when I'm in Italy, and I work on Italian topics and spend a lot of time in Italy, but if I'm in Bologna or Rome, places I normally get to go when I'm in Italy, there are a million distractions. They're pleasant ones, and there are a million demands on my time, as colleagues would like me to give seminars or meet with students and so forth, all of which is good and impossible to refuse, but it takes your time away from really concentrating on a book. At the moment, I'm at a particularly crucial stage in this book. I've spent years gathering this material. I just now need to get it all down on paper. And so, in fact, in this month, Judging from this first week, I will be able to get 200 or 300 pages written because I have this kind of quiet and perfect conditions. The other part of it, though, is you're not alone, that you have colleagues, but colleagues who are really a fascinating mix of people you don't normally come in contact with in academic life. People not only from all over the world, but from very different fields, from music to journalism, historians, others. And it's really, there's something kaleidoscopic about it and very stimulating too. So I've only been here for a week, so just begun to taste that, but I can see that's really going to be a big plus as well.
Well, I'm glad you're finding it an enjoyable experience, and we all look forward to seeing the book.
Thank you.